her. Nobody knows where she is.
Something's wrong.
911, do you have an emergency?
I have a 16-year-old daughter. She has not been home, hasn't went to work. I am scared to death.
Her mom gave her a kiss and gave her a hug and said, "I love you, Mom." She turned to me and said, "I love you, Dad." And she went to the room.
Friends came first with her. She was always about hanging out with friends if she didn't have work or school.
Search for Monongalia County teenager Skylar Neese is over.
Despair, loneliness, and sadness as a result of Skylar's death.
In the story we are about to hear, an extraordinary crime will take place. The identity of the culprit will come as a surprising shock to all, particularly the victim's immediate family. The killer's incredible lack of judgment became clear when they turned to Twitter to compose posts boasting about their crime in an offensive and revolting manner. The murderer will give an extremely strange justification for their actions, but the true intention will be exposed by the victim's writings, startling everyone. This story is filled with uncommon occurrences and peculiar particulars. I assure you that your interest will be captivated from start to finish, uncovering all the extraordinary and thrilling happenings within. This is Trip 14 channel, where we present fascinating content that will leave you craving for more. Today's video explores a topic that will give you chills. However, before we proceed, we kindly request you to subscribe to our channel, like this video, share it with your loved ones, and remember to leave a comment below. Your support is tremendously valuable to us and enables us to deliver even more captivating content. Now, let's delve into the enthralling.
Our story took place in Morgantown, a town located in the state of Virginia in the United States. This quiet and attractive city is home to about 35,000 people and is usually known for its low crime rate. However, in 2013, the city's tranquility was shattered when a very disturbing crime occurred, completely changing its character. Skylar Neese, a 16-year-old teenage girl, is the central character of the story. Skylar Neese was the beloved daughter of David Neese, a very caring father, and Mary Neese, an exceptional mother. Skylar, who was born in 1996, brought great joy and happiness to her parents on that special day. From her early years, she was a source of great joy to her family. Her father and mother showered her with love and affection, and her father in particular pampered her by spending all his free time playing with her. As time went by, Skylar grew older and older. At the age of 8, she met a girl named Sheila Eddy. The bond between Skylar and Sheila has strengthened over time, and they have reached a point where they are more like siblings. They were intimate and inseparable friends, always in each other's company, nourished by deep affection and camaraderie. As days turned into years, the two girls grew and matured together. Over time, both girls matured, and during their teenage years, Skylar excelled academically with an outstanding GPA, while her friend Sheila did not do so well. Sheila began socializing with a group of friends who were not a good influence, and she even began experimenting with marijuana and similar substances. Despite this, their friendship has remained strong and steadfast over the years, and they still consider each other their closest companions. When they arrived at the high school, they met a new student named Rachel Al-Shawaf. Rachel quickly formed a strong friendship with them, and together they became a group of 3 close friends, Skyrel, Sheila, and Rachel, who are widely recognized by everyone. Their bond was incredibly strong, so much so that their families began to treat them as their own. Naturally, despite Skylar's commitment to her studies, her friends gradually began to influence her. As a result, I started smoking marijuana with them and going out with them. She even started sneaking out of her room at night without her family knowing and going out with her friends while her family was asleep. What is important is that everything was generally positive, and it appeared as though everything was normal and proceeding as expected on the surface. Nevertheless, July 5, 2012 will bring about changes in all of these aspects. During the summer break, Skylar was employed part-time at a Wendy's restaurant. After finishing her shift one night, she returned home and greeted her family. Skylar kissed her father and mother before informing them that she was heading to her room. The next day, her parents left for work while Skylar stayed behind, sleeping in her room. When her father returned home later in the day, he expected to find Skylar in the kitchen or living room as usual. However, after searching for her, He couldn't locate her anywhere. He decided to check her room, only to find the door still closed. This was unusual, as Skylar typically left her room door open after leaving. Assuming she was still asleep, her father knocked on the door, urging her to wake up. Despite repeated attempts, Skylar did not respond. Worried, her father made the decision to open the door, only to discover that Skylar was not in her room. This surprised him, as she was not one to leave the house without notifying them, or so he thought. Her father's first move was to contact her by phone, but either the phone had no reception or it was turned off. Immediately after that, he called Skylar's mother, Mary, and inquired about Skylar. His wife informed him that Skylar had not spoken to her or mentioned anything to her. The father was confused and uncertain. This behavior was unusual for Skylar. Normally, she would let him know where she was. The father showed a mixture of anxiety and confusion. The dad was feeling bewildered. This was out of the ordinary for Skylar. Typically, she would inform him of her whereabouts. The dad displayed a combination of fear and perplexity. After thinking for a while, he called Sheila, who was his daughter's closest friend. However, Sheila told him that she had no idea where Skylar was and hadn't received any calls from her all day. Sheila even tried to contact Skylar twice, but realized that her phone had no signal. He asked Sheila when was the last time she spoke to Skylar, and she said that she had called her at midnight last night. The father experienced a peculiar sensation, causing his to intensify. He made the choice to re-enter her room and closely to examine it, which led to a shocking discovery. The father observed that the window was slightly ajar and had a small opening. He realized that this small opening was deliberately made so that someone could open the window from the outside. Realizing this, the father promptly opened the window and peered out from the exterior. He glanced in different directions, then glanced downward beneath the window. It was in this moment that he discovered something surprising. The father discovered a small chair on the floor, leading him to believe that his daughter, Skylar, used it to descend from the window the previous night. It appeared that Skylar intentionally left a small hole in the window so she could easily enter her room upon her return. The fact that the chair was positioned below the open window indicated that Skylar had not yet returned home from the previous night. The father decided to contact his wife once more, and both of them were filled with fear and anxiety over Skylar's sudden absence. They were extremely worried about their daughter's well-being, mainly concerned that she might have been abducted. They made numerous attempts to reach out to their loved ones and acquaintances, hoping for any information or sightings of Skylar or anyone who might have knowledge about her whereabouts. However, when asked, everyone claimed to have no knowledge about Skylar. It was already 4 p.m., which was Skylar's usual working hours at Wendy's restaurant. Concerned, the restaurant manager contacted her father to inquire if Skylar would be working that day. Despite her shift having started and no sign of her, she had neither arrived nor informed anyone about her absence. Attempts to reach her via phone were unsuccessful as it was turned off. This alarmed her father, who strongly felt that something had happened to his daughter. Immediately after ending the call with Skylar's manager, he contacted the police urgently seeking their assistance.
I have a daughter that's 16 years old. Apparently she snuck out of her room last night and she hasn't been seen since. None of her friends can get a hold of her. I can't find her.
Hey, what's her name?
Skylar Neese.
The police officially initiated the search for Skylar after the phone call. Following the previous conversation, Mary Skylar's mother received a phone call from Sheila, Skylar's best friend, inquiring about Skylar's whereabouts. Specifically, Sheila wanted to know if Skylar had come back home or if Skylar had made a call to Mary. Skylar's mother responded, saying, "No, she has not been found yet. We are extremely fearful and disturbed by her vanishing. We have reported her disappearance to the authorities." Sheila started feeling confused, and in a hesitant manner, she expressed her honesty by saying, "I have something important to tell you." Mary responded, "Sure, what happened?" Sheila honestly replied, "Skylar, Rachel, and I went out together last night. We secretly left our homes and drove around town. Next, we parked the vehicle and indulged in the consumption of marijuana. Once we were done, we promptly returned to the residence at around 12 a.m. and discreetly left Skylar 3 houses away to avoid arousing suspicion while he made his way back home secretly." His means, they positioned it far away so that Skylar's family would not hear the vehicle wake up and realize that Skylar was not in the house.
He had to tell me the truth, and I said, "Well, what truth?" She said, "Well, we snuck out last night."
The parents were filled with fear and dread following the confession, and unsettling thoughts started to occupy their minds. Did she go somewhere else after her friends dropped her off at home? Is it possible that she was abducted? The parents persisted in looking for their daughter, going to each neighbor's house to inquire if anyone had spotted Skylar or witnessed anything out of the ordinary the previous night. Then think about surveillance cameras. Their house was situated in close proximity to a building equipped with a surveillance camera. By collaborating with the police, they were able to access and obtain footage from the cameras during the night when the disappearance took place. Regrettably, the cameras had subpar quality and produced vague images during night photography. However, these recordings revealed a car approaching the Skylar family's residence at exactly midnight and 30 minutes. Be ready! According to Sheila, they left Skylar near the house around midnight, so the car came to their house approximately 30 minutes after Skylar left her friend's car. The car came to a stop beside the house, and after a few minutes, the camera captured Skylar walking towards the car, opening the door, and willingly getting inside. Then, the car drove away from the location. Undoubtedly, the recordings lack clarity, making it incredibly challenging for them to determine the car's make or model, the license plate digits, or even its color.
I have a daughter that's 16 years old. Apparently she snuck out of her room last night and she hasn't been seen since. None of her friends can get a hold of her. I can't find her.
What's her name?
Skylar Neese.
Upon viewing the recording, Skylar's family experienced a combination of fear, blended with a sense of relief and a slight measure of comfort. It is now clear that Skylar was not forcibly taken, but instead willingly entered the car without any form of coercion. As a result, the police now suspect that Skylar secretly left the house on 2 separate occasions that night. She had her initial encounter with Sheila and Rachel, her friends, before going back home at midnight. Shortly after, at exactly 12:30 a.m., she discreetly left her room for the second time and entered an unfamiliar vehicle. At first, the police held the belief that Skylar had intentionally left her home for unknown reasons, despite not being convinced that their daughter had run away because there was no apparent motive for her to do so. The parents eventually came to believe that Skylar had indeed left. Consequently, David, Skylar's father, decided to seek help from the media and made an appearance on a local TV station, earnestly appealing for his daughter to come back home.
We love you. Come home as soon as you can, baby. Honey, if you're scared, don't be scared. You're not in trouble. We need to talk, and that's all, honey. Just come.
Hey, gorgeous. Hi, Daddy. You're beautiful, baby.
She was reading way before she was supposed to.
Thanks for me. Please.
Her mom gave her a kiss and gave her a hug and said, "I love you, Mom." She turned to me and said, "I love you, Dad." And she went to the room.
In Star City, everyone, including family and friends, was upset by Skylar's disappearance. In particular, Sheila and Rachel. They were very worried. Skylar used to communicate regularly with his parents, and Sheila was constantly remorseful and apologetic to them. She felt guilty because she was the reason Skylar went out that night.
The Star City police are still looking for a missing 16-year-old.
Rachel was helping to spread pictures of Skylar, and at the same time, Sheila was using Twitter to post about the situation, express her missing her friend, and urge her to come back. Sheila and Rachel were deeply affected by Skylar's disappearance and did everything they could to locate her. However, despite a diligent search, Skylar remained missing even after several days and weeks had passed. One day, Skylar's friend Sheila went to Skylar's house and expressed to Mary, Skylar's mother, that she missed her friend very much. Sheila then asked for Mary's consent to enter Skylar's room and sit on her bed for a short period of time. The mother said to her, "Of course, come in." So Sheila entered the room and sat on Skylar's bed. At this moment, her emotions became overwhelming, causing her to lose control of herself as tears streamed down her face, resulting in a bout of intense crying. Skylar's mother sat next to her, hugged her, and began to comfort her while assuring her that Skylar would return. The mother and father were fully aware of the distress their daughter's friends were experiencing, and their fear was great, perhaps even the same fear and pain that they were feeling. Since the day she went missing, the police have been concentrating on finding a solution to Skylar's disappearance. Investigator Jessica, who is leading the investigation into Skylar's disappearance, was unable to find any evidence or leads to begin her search. She had a strong intuition that this case was not simply a matter of someone running away from home. There seemed to be no reason for Skylar to flee her stable and happy life with her family. She is deeply cherished by her family. Her friends greatly admire her. She performs excellently in her academic pursuits. She thoroughly enjoys her job at Wynn's restaurant. Upon completing her education, her aspiration was to become either a lawyer or a crime investigator. Furthermore, when she vanished, she left behind all of her belongings, including her mobile charger. If Skylar suddenly vanished and chose to flee, the easiest option for her would be to bring along her valuable possessions. Detective Jessica contemplated these factors and, as mentioned earlier, held strong skepticism regarding Skylar's escape. So, Jessica figured out that the initial answer to this situation would come from her friends Sheila and Rachel, given that they were the last individuals she was with before vanishing. In this instance, she attempted to gain further information regarding her two dear friends. The detective had doubts concerning Rachel and Sheila. She suspected that these two girls possessed knowledge regarding Skylar's disappearance, yet they had kept this information to themselves. The girl's story made her feel skeptical. Naturally, when you listen to the story from various individuals' points of view, you come across differing details between the novel and the second account. However, there was something highly questionable in Sheila and Rachel's narrative regarding the events on the night Skylar went missing. Are you now curious about whether there were significant disparities in the events depicted in the novels of the two girls? The answer is no. In contrast, their storytelling that evening was exceptionally similar. They recounted the events with remarkable precision, mentioning even the tiniest of details with a striking 100% resemblance, as if they had been coached and deliberately agreed to speak the exact same words, committing it to memory. The detective, Jessica, found this object suspicious and therefore had significant concerns regarding the two girls.
Friends came first with her. She was always about hanging out with friends if she didn't have work or school. They were literally together every second of every day. It seemed like they hung out all the time.
One without the other. It's always Sheila, Skylar, Rachel, always together.
Her arm around her mom, gave her a kiss and gave her a hug and said, "I love you, Mom." She turned to me and said, "I love you, Dad." And she went to the room.
To tell me the truth. And I said, well, what truth? She said, well, we snuck out last
night. I have a daughter that's 16 years old. Apparently she snuck out of her room last night and she hasn't been seen since. None of her friends can get a hold of her. I can't find her.
Hey, what's her name?
Skylar.
City police are still looking for a missing 16-year-old.
Yeah, she got in the back seat, I could tell that. And she drove away.
Starting from that point, she started to have increasing uncertainties about both friends, particularly Sheila, as she seemed devoid of any emotional display while recounting the narrative. Her tone was chilly and robotic. In the course of the inquiry, Sheila and Rachel mentioned that they met up with Skylar at 11 o'clock in the evening. Subsequently, they drove around the town with a particular focus on rural areas, and they did not venture far. Their excursion took place within their own town, near their residences. Later on, they pulled over by the roadside and partook in drug use. Once they were done, they promptly headed back. Upon reaching their destination, they brought Skylar to her home, dropping her off at around midnight. In cases like these, it is common for the last individuals who were with the victim to be the initial suspects and are under suspicion. However, in this specific situation, there was no doubt regarding Sheila and Rachel, specifically within Skylar's family, who regarded them as integral parts of the family. However, the investigator had a strong feeling of doubt, leading her to initiate contact and conduct inquiries with individuals who were acquainted with or had connections to the three girls, Skylar, Rachel, and Sheila. This primarily included their high school friends. After conducting research and discussing with their study group, it became apparent that the majority of them had a lack of trust in Sheila, and they view her as deceitful and sly, someone who enjoys manipulating others and having control. They also believe she is consistently unreliable. As a result of this information, the investigators' suspicions started intensifying. Next, she proceeded to scour the web and various social media platforms by delving into the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram profiles of the girls. Skylar, Rachel, and Sheila all have accounts accounts on each of these platforms. Upon accessing Skylar's Twitter account, the investigator noted that Skylar was angry toward an individual. She expressed her anger and indignation through skeptical tweets. Let's take a look at some of these tweets together. There's just something about you I can't stand. People can be so mean for absolutely no reason. Hope you don't expect me to give any more hashtag bye. She wrote all of these tweets within weeks of her disappearance, and this is the last tweet she wrote on the same night of her disappearance. You doing like that is why I will never completely trust you. It was evident from those tweets that Skylar was feeling angry towards somebody. However, the identity of this individual remains unknown at present. The researcher proceeded with their investigation, examining their social media profiles. They came across a troubling video on Skylar's Twitter page where Sheila was seen questioning Skylar and Rachel about their views on selecting death. It's similar to a game where you have to make choices. Specifically, if you were given the option to decide how you will meet your end. Upon initial observation, the video gives off an impression of typical teenagers engaging in playful activities. However, due to the ominous circumstances surrounding Skylar's disappearance, the investigator was compelled to view the video in a more chilling and alarming manner.
Would you guys rather suffocate or get shot? Get shot. Shot. Wait, depends on where. Would you rather in the head? Shot. There would be no suffering at all. Drowning or suffocating? Suffocate. It's almost the same thing.
However, what is perplexing is that despite the police searching Sheila and Rachel's cell phones, they did not come across any messages discussing for Skylar or about her vanishing. Since Skylar vanished, it seemed like her presence had been completely erased from their minds, as they hadn't mentioned or talked about her ever since that day. This person was anticipated to be a lifelong intimate companion, but unexpectedly disappeared. It was extremely peculiar that there has been no reference to her in any message after she went missing. Meanwhile, the suspicions of the investigator have been gradually increasing, as usual. Despite the police having suspicions about Russell and Sheila, the parents refused to believe them, even though they were aware that Sheila had a detrimental impact on their daughter, Skylar. Sheila was leading her towards using drugs and engaging in misconduct. However, overall, they adored her and regarded her as a beloved member of their family. When it was communicated to them by the police that Sheila and Rachel were highly suspected, the father firmly dismissed these suspicions and declared that her brothers were trustworthy and incapable of causing any harm to her. He pleaded with the police not to burden the girls and allow them to deal with the sadness, fatigue, and fear they are currently facing, as they are worried about Skylar during this difficult time. However, the police were primarily focused on Sheila and Rachel. During their investigation, they uncovered discrepancies in their account of the events that took place on the night Skylar went missing. Are you, like the police, suspicious of Rachel and Sheila? Or do you stand with the parents and believe their friends are not involved in Skylar's disappearance? In recent months, the authorities have been gathering all available proof and information that can aid in resolving the investigation. In the course of their investigation, they gathered audio-visual data from numerous surveillance cameras situated throughout the city. By analyzing these recordings, they discovered a highly significant video material. In this scene, Sheila's car is depicted at midnight on its way towards the road that leads away from the town. If you observe this footage, it reveals two missing pieces in the narrative. The first gap is timing. According to Sheila and Rachel, they say they brought Skylar back home at midnight. However, according to the footage from the camera, Sheila's vehicle was present on the street at 12:30 a.m. The second loophole pertained to their argument that their tour remained within the confines of the town, implying that they did not venture to a distant location. However, the recording indicated that the vehicle was driving on the road that leads away from the city. In addition to this proof, further proof was found through phone tracing done by the police, which revealed that the girls had indeed taken the car from Morgantown and reached another town known as Blacksville, located approximately 45 minutes away. Their story had significant gaps that were quite strong. Once again, Sheila and Rachel were called upon by the police for further investigation. They presented these facts to them, however. Sheila and Rachel decided to alter their narrative. They confirmed the truth of the matter, acknowledging that they did indeed go to Blacksville on that particular night. They admitted to unintentionally neglecting to inform you. At this point, the police began to understand the situation more clearly. The two girls were concealing something and keeping the truth hidden. In this instance, the investigator made a choice to question the two girls separately, conducting individual interrogations for each of them. As a result, they were unable to use the same details as before, preventing them from having the opportunity to rehearse or coordinate their conversation. Sheila's narration this time was at midnight. They brought Skylar back to her house, and afterward, she and Rachel left to Blacksville town, but Rachel claimed that Skylar was present with them. However, their conflicting accounts allowed the police to apply pressure. Despite this, Sheila remained firm in her story, insisting that everything she had said was truthful and asserting that had dropped Skylar off near her house at 12 midnight, then they left. Without prompting, she took the initiative to inquire if they didn't trust her and expressed her willingness to undergo a lie detector test. The investigator accepted her request. To her surprise, Sheila performs extremely poorly on the lie detector test. Rachel, like Sheila, consented to undergo a lie detector examination. However, during the car journey with her father to the police station, she experienced an intense bout of fear and panic. As a result, she swiftly opened the car door, leapt out onto the road, and hastily departed the location. Her actions stemmed from her dread of successfully completing the lie detector examination. The police are completely confident that these two girls are connected to Skylar's vanishing, but despite this certainty, the investigator lacks any evidence to support their suspicions, even though the narrative is now apparent. Even Skylar's parents are convinced that the two girls possess information about their daughter's whereabouts, but they are unwilling to disclose it. The news of Skylar's situation reached various individuals in her town, including her friends, neighbors, and schoolmates. Consequently, these individuals started reaching out to Sheila and Rachel, questioning why they were not helping the police. They also expressed concern about Skylar's whereabouts and the apparent lack of cooperation with the police. The two girls faced pressure from everyone who knew Skylar, to the extent that even their teachers at school started inquiring about the matter. In her denial of any knowledge regarding Skylar's disappearance, Sheila maintained her unwavering determination and remained resolute in her claim of ignorance. However, Rachel was that she lacked the same endurance and composure as Sheila. It was evident that the stress was taking a toll on her, and she was on the verge of succumbing and losing control very soon. Yes, it was actually in January 2013 when this surrender and explosion happened. I mean, approximately half a year following Skylar's disappearance, Rachel's mother dialed the emergency hotline 911 to inform them that she was incapable of managing her daughter Rachel due to her experiencing a severe nervous breakdown.
It's over. Please hurry.
Mon County 911, we have an emergency.
I have an issue with a 16-year-old daughter of mine. We can't control her anymore. She's hitting nuts, she's screaming, she's running through the neighborhood. Give me the phone. Okay. No, this is over. This is over. My husband's trying to contain her. Please hurry.
Rachel was unable to handle the overwhelming pressure coming from her friends and family, which ultimately led to her collapse. Following the phone conversation, law enforcement arrived and transported Rachel to a psychiatric facility, where she stayed for a few days until she regained composure. Subsequently, the medical professionals determined her improved condition and granted her permission to go back to her residence. With fear overpowering them, she and her father made their way to the police station and cautiously approached the investigators. In that instant, the investigators became sure that they were going to be informed of the facts regarding what occurred and the details surrounding Skylar's disappearance that evening. Rachel uttered her initial word. We proceeded to stab her. In this instance, the investigator requested a further explanation from her regarding the details and motives behind stabbing Skylar. Rachel started narrating the specifics of that evening with a quivering tone. In reality, she stated that they had actually started making plans to end Skylar's life several months prior to that particular evening. Initially, it seemed like a joke, but then they became serious about getting rid of Skylar. How would they execute her murder? Initially, they considered using a gunshot, but obtaining a firearm proved challenging, so they opted for using knives instead. They continued planning the act meticulously to ensure no evidence would be left behind. On the day of her disappearance, Rachel urgently contacted Sheila, asking her to expedite the operation as she would go on a lengthy church camping trip and wanted it accomplished accomplished right away. On that evening, they assembled all the necessary items. They came prepared with a spade, tissues, bleach, detergents, a fresh set of clothing, and, importantly, the tools intended for committing murder, specifically sizable knives. They contacted Skylar that evening and made the decision to secretly leave their houses for a brief stroll and engage in the consumption of prohibited substances. If you recall the vehicle that was recorded by security cameras, it belongs to Sheila. However, the pictures were blurry, preventing the police from determining the car model. Naturally, the girls were not truthful about the timeline, as they claimed to have picked up Skylar at 11 p.m. and brought her back home by 12 midnight, although the truth is they actually took her from the house at 12:30 a.m. simultaneously with the arrival of the car was captured on the surveillance camera. While waiting for Skylar in the car, each girl concealed a knife in her clothing. They were wearing hoodies that night, which prevented Skylar from noticing the knives hidden amidst their garments. It would be unimaginable for her to think that her best friend would use knives to brutally end her life, even if she did notice their presence. Upon arriving, Sheila skillfully steered the car to a secluded spot nestled within a forest encompassed by towering trees. The location did not catch Skylar off guard, as they frequently visited there, participating in activities such as smoking hashish and evading public visibility. Following that, Sheila's car came to a halt in an entirely empty location, prompting the girls to exit the vehicle with the intention of partaking in the consumption of banned narcotic. They discovered a suitable spot beneath a tree where they settled down to indulge in their activities. Once they had settled down, Sheila reached into her bag and began searching for her lighter. She mentioned that she had left the lighter in the car and politely asked Skylar if she could retrieve it. Skylar responded with a gesture of acceptance and got up to go to the car, leaving the girls behind. Simultaneously, Sheila and Rachel also stood up and took out knives concealed in their clothing. They spoke in unison, saying 1, 2, 3, and before Skylar could turn around and comprehend their actions, Sheila and Rachel launched an attack on her with knives and stabbed her in the back. When Skylar felt the stab wounds in her back, she instinctively started to run forward in the direction of the car, but Sheila and Rachel ran after her, and because of the stab wounds she received in her back, her strength failed and she fell to the ground. As soon as they reached her, her criminal friends pinned her to the ground with all force and began to continue stabbing her. Skylar tried to raise her hand and resist. She screams from fear and pain and says, why? She has no other words as she looks at her closest friends above her as they stab her so that she can breathe her last. After this heinous crime, Rachel was trembling and afraid. As for Sheila, her nerves were cold and she was very normal, as if she had not killed her lifelong friend, the girl she had grown up with, and she was never affected by everything that happened. In my view, Sheila exhibits psychopathic tendencies and displays a consistent pattern of being a serial killer. She carries out her murders in a composed and unemotional way, demonstrating a lack of empathy and disregard for the consequences of her actions. Neither fear nor remorse affects her behavior, emphasizing the significant danger she presents. It was her intelligence and planning that orchestrated this terrible act. Returning to our story, the intention of using the shovel was to dig a deep hole in the heart of the forest, to be a final resting place for Skylar without any disturbances. However, they soon realized that the ground was too dense and solid to penetrate. Therefore, they made the decision to move Skylar's lifeless body and deposit it in a secluded area next to the trees. Afterward, they disposed of their blood-stained garments and used bleach and cleaning supplies to cleanse themselves. Subsequently, they changed into fresh attire that they had brought along. They then transported their previous clothes to a distant area away from where Skylar's body was found, where they proceeded to burn and discard them. These two young criminals were exceptionally skilled. I now highly suspect that Skylar was not their first victim. These actions and plans are far from ordinary. They are the types of activities performed by seasoned assassins. We now resume our narrative. Once they had successfully carried out their illicit assignment, they nonchalantly returned to their residence, behaving as though the previous events had no bearing on their demeanor. The police were taken aback by the numerous specific, but they had one inquiry for Rachel, which is likely the same question you have right now. It is also the identical question Skylar posed to them before her untimely demise at their cruel hands. Why did you take the life of your closest companion? What actions had she done to make you decide to end the life of a youthful girl? Rachel's answer was simple. We don't love her anymore. My friends, the reason behind her death is clear. They no longer had feelings of love for her, so instead of simply cutting ties by unfollowing her on Twitter, unfriending her on Facebook, or erasing her number from their phone. They made the extreme decision to end her life. As I mentioned before, these two girls have a criminal mentality and are dangerous. They killed her for a trivial reason. The authorities attempted to gather more information or specifics from Rachel, but she refrained from providing any additional details and maintained that the sole motive for her act of murder was they no longer liked her. Shocking here, despite admitting to the entire crime, Rachel was not taken into custody by the police on that specific day. You will wonder why. Due to a lack of clear and substantial evidence against her friend, Rachel's admissions were insufficient to implicate Sheila. As a result, the police struck a deal with Rachel, promising to let her go back home if she assisted them in finding proof to convict Sheila. They decided to keep Rachel's confessions hidden until they brought Sheila down. To achieve this, they placed a listening device on Rachel, who was then instructed to meet with Sheila and attempt to extract incriminating admissions in the hopes that Sheila would incriminate herself. However, the police's anticipated outcome did not occur, as Sheila did not make any mention of Skylar's murder. In fact, the two murderers ended up spending the night together at Sheila's residence. Sheila uploaded a picture of herself along with Rachel, sharing a joyful moment on the social media platform Twitter. And I wrote, "Finally got to see Rachel." This image deeply affected me on a personal level. It disturbed me how they could laugh and spend the evening together as if nothing had happened, as though they had merely taken the life of an insect instead of their innocent friend. During that time, the police initiated the search for Skylar's body. Rachel couldn't recall the exact location where the body was discarded due to its unfamiliar, distant, and secluded nature, but she made an effort to provide a detailed description of the place. After conducting thorough searches in the area and the forests as indicated by Rachel, the police eventually discovered Skylar's body about 6 months after she was killed. They confirmed that she had been fatally stabbed. Once the news reached Skylar Sr.'s family, he was overwhelmed with grief upon learning of his daughter's death. When he also discovered that she had been murdered, he became highly agitated and expressed his anger in a dramatic outburst. It is extremely heartbreaking to receive the news of your daughter's demise, particularly if she was a victim of a heinous crime. The family and friends experienced a profound feeling of grief. Imagine the abhorrent act when Sheila began expressing her sorrow for her friend Skylar on Twitter. In one of her tweets, she wrote, "The worst day of my life." In a second tweet, she wrote, "The pain is real." In another tweet, she wrote, "Rest in peace, Skylar. You will always be my best friend." The wicked individual continued to act innocent, unaware that the police were closely observing her actions. Their goal was to gather proof that would implicate her. After posting tweets in which she feigned sadness about Skylar's death, Sheila started to share tweets that seemed like she was boasting about her crime. One of her tweets mentioned a puzzling case in an episode of the TV series Law and Order, suggesting that it was a situation they couldn't resolve. It seemed like she was mocking the police, insinuating that they wouldn't be able to solve Skylar's case. Shortly after, she composed another tweet, "We really did go on 3. On the night of the crime, Sheila and Rachel stabbed Skylar after counting to 3. Imagine this wicked girl proudly boasting about her heinous deed. Sheila was unaware that, due to her posts on social media and Rachel's admissions, the authorities had obtained a search warrant authorized by a judge. Subsequently, during their examination and investigation of the vehicle, they found proof of Skylar's blood. The police gathered sufficient evidence to construct a compelling case, resulting in the arrest and sentencing of both Sheila and Rachel. Skylar's parents were taken aback upon discovering that their daughter's killers were her best friend, as they had never anticipated her being accountable for Skylar's demise. The father was feeling very frustrated as he conveyed his feelings. He stated that although they pretended to be worried and sad about their friend's death, they felt that they were secretly responsible for it. The mother's depression worsened when she recalled the incident when Sheila visited her home. Sheila asked to sit on Skylar's bed and pretended to cry. In response, the mother hugged Sheila, comforted her, and tried to ease her grief. Imagine yourself hugging the person who took your daughter's life. It's a very painful feeling. The reason provided by the two criminals for committing the crime was something that the parents declined to accept. They couldn't accept the fact that they had done something wrong because their feelings for Skylar had suddenly vanished. Skylar likely possessed knowledge of a secret regarding her friend, friends, leading to her untimely demise. Consequently, it became necessary for her companions to bury him alongside her. The discovery made by the police in Skylar's personal diary may have been the result of this. In her autobiography, Skylar shared the story of a same-sex relationship between Rachel and Sheila that she discovered while visiting Sheila's house. As a result of this disclosure, the conflict between Skylar and Sheila intensified, causing Skylar to vent her frustration towards Sheila on social media. Of these tweets, she wrote, "I tell the whole school all the I have everyone, which is a lot." In another tweet, she wrote, "Just know I know." The police came to the conclusion that these tweets may have constituted threats towards Sheila and Rachel, which may have motivated them to commit suicide. In my own view, upon reading about Skylar's passing, I did not anticipate that her death resulted from uncovering an unusual bond between her two friends. I believe there is a bigger reason behind this. My suspicion is that she exposed a secret about them. If this secret were to be uncovered, it would bring them the same trouble they are currently facing. It is a possibility that the girls committed murder and Skylar found out, resulting in them killing her. The police did not mention anything along these lines, but it is what I anticipate. Ultimately, these two girls are not unintelligent enough to murder their friend over something like this, especially knowing that their crime could potentially be uncovered. I suspect that the motive must have been on the same level or even more severe, prompting them to coldly take her life. As I mentioned before, these are my assumptions. Let me know in the comments if you believe that Skylar's death was due to her discovering the homosexual relationship among her friends, or if she stumbled upon a crime or dangerous act committed by the two girls. However, Sheila and Rachel denied this claim. They maintained that their motive for killing Skylar was their lack of love for her, even though the police and family suspected that the discovery of a hidden secret in Skylar's diary played a role in their decision to end her life. The trial of the two young girls and the instigator commenced on that particular day as Sheila walked into the courtroom, displaying a mocking grin. She appeared incredibly composed and cheerful. As I mentioned previously, this girl suffers from a mental illness. She poses a threat as she lacks any feelings of guilt, fear of the unknown, or concern about facing trial. In contrast, Rachel arrived and displayed regret, vulnerability, and fear on her face. She attempted to garner sympathy from the judge, the audience, and particularly Skylar's family. Rachel even presented a letter of apology to Skylar's family.
I don't know if there's a proper way to make this apology, because there are not even words to describe the guilt and remorse that I feel each day for what I've done. I became scared and caught up in something that I did not want to do. I never realized the gravity of my actions and how many people I've hurt.
In the courtroom, both of Rachel's parents were there, and her mother was shedding tears upon hearing her daughter's letter. This message had no impact on Skylar's family, particularly her father. Her tears and apology failed to convince Skylar's father, who also reacted angrily towards her.
Yes, Rachel Schoaf did cooperate. And Rachel Schoaf also murdered my daughter in cold blood. She can take her apologies and everything else and sit on them because that's about what they're worth to me and my wife. She has done nothing but make our lives a living hell since this day one.
Sheila remained silent throughout the trial, refusing to apologize or express any remorse. Due to Rachel's complete cooperation with the police and her immediate confession to the crime, she was given a lenient punishment of 30 years for second-degree murder. On the other hand, Sheila was found guilty of first-degree murder and consequently sentenced to spend her entire life in prison. However, it is unfortunate that despite these decisions, Rachel and Sheila, who were considered minors when they committed the crime, may potentially be granted release in their 30s. Nevertheless, this release will come with supervision and is contingent upon their outstanding and exemplary conduct during their time in prison. Skylar's father firmly conveyed his message to the two criminals that he would be present at every parole hearing and would persuade all authorities and judges to ensure that Skylar and Rachel are imprisoned for the rest of their lives.
If I'm dead and gone, somebody will be there to make sure they talk to the parole board and these animals don't get out of their cages.
If you could say anything to Sheila and Rachel right now, what would you say?
Rotten hell.
In conclusion, the Skylar Neese murder case teaches us the importance of trust, recognizing warning signs, resisting peer pressure, open communication, reporting suspicions, and raising awareness. Let's prioritize trust in relationships, pay attention to warning signs, make our own choices, communicate openly, report concerns, and support missing persons initiatives. Together, we can create safer communities. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and make a positive impact. Dear viewers, if you found this video valuable, we kindly invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Trip 14. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with our latest content. Don't forget to activate the notification bell to receive timely updates. Sharing is caring. If you believe others can benefit from this video, please share it with your friends and family. Your support allows us to reach a wider audience and make a positive impact. Lastly, if you enjoyed the video, we would appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up by liking it. Your feedback is valuable to us and motivates us to continue creating helpful content. Thank you for your support.